Hey guys, welcome to the Deansy Boy Show. I am your host, Reese Deans, and today it's a brand new episode for 2017, the home of the Deansy Boy Show. It's back. I'm back. I'm here in front of a new microphone, some new equipment, and I'm still in my house, and it's still my studio, and I'm here to talk about wrestling because that's what the Deansy Boy Show is about. And you can still tell that I'm still fluffing my lines because I haven't learned shit at all. The reason why it's been a long break is because I'll go through the reason why I stopped doing the Deansy Boy Show over the course of December, early on into the new year. It was because the old microphone that I used to have, it broke, and if you notice from Shane Douglas' interview, that it was a little bit of a pixely, it was out of sync and everything. It was because the microphone did not work at all. And that was the reason why, and I got really pissed off when I found out it was the microphone instead of the computer or whatever happened. But anyway, it's different now. I've bought new equipment out of my own Christmas money. Thank you, Mum and Dad, and thank you, Nan and Bam, for buying me these stuff. But anyway, we're back, brand new episode. And what am I going to talk about in today's episode? Well, I'm going to talk to you about WOS Wrestling returning. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it has returned to ITV. It's returned to the British screens on your home front television set. And what a day it was for wrestling on New Year's Eve. I'll tell you that right now. You know, with World of Sport Wrestling coming back recently on New Year's Eve, I mean, British television just reintroduced the whole sport after 30 years of being off television. You know, of course, there was no Big Daddy, there was no Giant Haystacks, there was no Kendo Nagasaki. But who cares? British wrestling's moved on. And wrestling has evolved and modernised. And I'll be talking about World of Sport Wrestling. I'll be talking it as a whole. I'll be talking about the show itself. I'm not going to be critical. I'm just going to talk about it and what I feel about it, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. It may sound like I'm a critic, but oh well, who fucking cares? Who's going to listen to this anyway? But so back to World of Sport Wrestling. The reason why is because I wanted to do this whole assess thing on World of Sport as a show is because it's been off the air or it's been off television for over 30 years, and you know, British wrestling has evolved and changed through the years, and so you get this attention from not only modern wrestling fans, but also you're going to have the fans who are the fans who watched the Big Daddy era back in the day to come back and watch it. You know, you're going to have a different reception. You know, you're going to have different views and everything. So, of course, the build-up and promoting of the show was superbly well done. It was perfectly well produced. And my Twitter was buzzing with wrestling fans talking about and tweeting about World of Sport. Anyway, the first thing that I seen on the television on the World of Sport program was Jim Ross and Alex Sheen being introduced as the commentators. People are really quick to judge these days, and they like to be very critical as well. They can't just stop for a minute and watch it. They have to judge a book by its cover. And I think criticising Jim Ross for being the lead commentator for World of Sport Wrestling, a British show, which I'll get down to in a minute, it's really harsh and selfish. I know he's an American commentator, but he's a wrestling commentator who attracts an audience attention. I mean, Jim Ross has left a tremendous mark on professional wrestling as itself, you know. Just Jim Ross just leaving a big stamp on there, and it's considered to be one of the greatest, actually the greatest commentator since Gordon Soley. I believe that if it wasn't for Jim Ross's commentary, many famous matches in WWE, WCW, whatever, we know off by heart today, such as the Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Mick Foley. I mean, it wouldn't be as good to have anyone else but Jim Ross doing the commentating. I mean, Jim Ross being there and calling the matches does not give himself the attention, but it gives the wrestlers the attention, because Jim Ross, is feeding you the information and what the wrestlers can offer, and he sells it perfectly well done. But I know that Alex Shane, don't get me wrong, I mean, he's a good commentator. I've listened to him on WCPW, I've listened to him on other wrestling shows. He's a good commentator. I got no problem with that. But having someone like Jim Ross to call the matches is a big boost and a help for British wrestling. But you know, with Jim Ross there, and you're probably gonna say, yeah, but he's American. And guys, you gotta think out of the box, man. You gotta think realistically here. Who would you want to introduce World of Sport back? And to have Jim Ross do that, I think is just amazing. And there was loads of people tweeting about it, thinking that if it wasn't for Jim Ross, maybe some people wouldn't be watching the wrestling or the show itself. And when people say about American, this is where I'm going to jump into this now. People would say that they always criticize of how organized the World of Sports show was. I mean, people have said that World of Sport wrestling had nothing to do with what it offered 30 years ago. You know, they were saying, it wasn't like back in the day. They didn't do proper British wrestling. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. The answer I would normally give to them is that wrestling's changed. It's modernized. It's jumped forward a lot. I mean, pro wrestling has been the same. They're always trying to say that there's a British wrestling, there's American wrestling, there's Japanese wrestling. I know there's different countries and they offer different wrestling, but if you look at it realistically, it's still the same. Just look at the wrestling. I mean, the answer I would normally give to people about the whole American thing and the UK wrestling thing is that all around the world, from America to the UK to Mexico to Japan, like I said, wrestling has been the same. The matches I watched on the show were a mixture of what wrestling offers now in UK and American and what it offered back in the day. I think as well that people watch too much American wrestling and they believe that what they see or what they watched on the show has been copied across the pond. There's no such thing as the show being Americanized or based on American wrestling. That's just a load of bullshit. I've been to many UK wrestling shows and there are different styles and themes. But to conclude, there isn't much difference to it whatsoever. For someone to say, they've been doing these jumping stunts like the Americans, do yourself a favour, stop watching WWE and watch British wrestling then. Or watch the independent wrestling. Just watch it over the years and try to point out what's British wrestling and what's American wrestling, because I can guarantee you'll find very little. And don't try to find any excuses saying, but he did this move and he did that move, or he did this promo, he did that promo. That does not mean a thing. It's wrestling. It's moved on. It's modernized. It's jumped forward in time. Get over it. Grow a pair. Christ, but speaking of the wrestling, let's just get onto the wrestling point of view. I actually enjoyed watching the wrestling match itself. I thought it was going to be like what it was 30 years ago, where they did proper technical work, where they didn't do much high flying or big body slams. They were just always on the ground doing little tools and things, which I found it right now to be very boring, because I grew up watching the Attitude Era, WWE, but then I started watching the British wrestling shows. I didn't want it to be like the old World of Sport, because I think because times have changed and everyone's moved on and wrestling evolved rapidly, the audience want to expect more out of the wrestlers. And of course we had storytelling, great match build-ups, but the one thing I was disappointed in was that they could have brought in other talented and much more recognised wrestlers like Mark Andrews, Pete Dunne, Wild Boar, Martin Kirby, Zack Sabre Jr., Joseph Cars, etc., etc. Some of you may say that they had other plans, and of course you got the WWE UK title tournament coming up, but remember this, guys. The World Sports Show was pre-taped months before the actual airing date. So, and months before actually the WWE UK title tournament was announced. So to say that, you're just talking along nonsense, So, but I enjoyed the matches, especially the tag team match and the ladder match plus singles competitions. The one thing I didn't agree on was to have Grado and Dave Mastiff fight for the title. As much as I am a fan of Grado and Dave Mastiff, I didn't think those two were the right kind of wrestlers to go out and represent British wrestling. I could be wrong, some wrestler, if I release this on Twitter, some wrestler would turn around and say, well, hang on, shut up, you're talking a lot of bollocks there. Yeah, fair enough, okay, you're right, maybe they could, but that's just my opinion. I've always got an opinion, you've got an opinion, guys, I'm just telling you what I think of it. And if I were to book the event, I'd have Zack Sabre Jr. and Pete Dunne going for the title, because those two wrestlers have made a name for themselves so much over the years that they finally made a mark on their name when Sabre Jr. appeared in the Cruiserweight Classic, the WWE Cruiserweight Classic tournament, and now Pete Dunne is getting himself known as he's going to pursue for the WWE UK title in that tournament. And because those two, I think, have been the best British wrestlers of 2016, I think it was right for them two to go ahead. But hey ho, you can't win everything. So for Grado, I thought okay, but I thought Zack Sabre Jr. or Pete Dunne would have been the best choices. The one thing I didn't expect to see was Davey Boy Smith Jr., the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith Jr. making an appearance in the Battle Royal or in the main event. And when they announced a special guest wrestler, I thought it was going to be a British wrestler, of course, but I thought it was going to be a completely different one. I thought they were going to bring in William Regal for some reason. I don't know what. Some famous wrestler like Sabre Jr. or something like that. But when David Boy Smith Jr. came out and, the whole place just buzzed, it was going absolutely mad. I was going mad in my living room. I was going, what? Oh my god! They brought in the son of the British Bulldog, who the British Bulldog Senior was the most iconic British professional wrestler back in the day, along with the Dynamite Kid, Big Daddy, etc., etc. I thought it was a very nice touch, in honesty. I would have had him as the winner of the Battle Royal and win the title. But that's just my opinion. Leave a comment below, guys, on what you think is actually your ideal wrestler to go and do the matches. One thing I liked about the show was the videos that looked back on the world of sport. Showing the likes of Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, Kendo Nakasaki, Johnny Singh, Fit Finlay, and many more. It was interesting to learn from the people who have been there and done it. And it gave a feeding of information to the younger audience, today's young wrestling fans, of what British wrestling was like back in the day. I think, in all honesty, if it wasn't for the likes of Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks, Kendo Nakasaki, Johnny Saint, all them wrestlers, I think British wrestling would not have been appreciated or been known much more if it wasn't for them guys. And I had to take my hat off to them. And I just really like it that for the likes of Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks to help produce British wrestling on its own is just phenomenal. And now is where I'm going to go back to where people were accusing World of Sport as being too American. And this is what I'm going to talk about now. Everyone's saying it was too American or it was Americanized. The wrestling is so much like the Americans, the fans say. They always say, and I quote, they've taken so much from American wrestling that it's not really British. The problem with those people, I think, like I said, they don't realize that wrestling has changed and wrestling produces many different qualities or quantities over the years. I mean, you get Mexico doing lucha libre, and American and British wrestling adopt that kind of style. And then you get Japan doing hardcore wrestling style, and of course, Mexico do it, Americans do it, British wrestling does it. I mean, there's no such thing as copying. I think it's what you call adopting or basing your style and techniques in the ring. I mean, for people to say they're taking American stuff from it, it's Americans. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, I hate the fact that I'm being repetitive here, but stop watching WWE and watch more British wrestling. It's no different. Go online on YouTube or watch your local TV stations, not the BBC, like Made in Plymouth or Made in Cardiff television stuff, all that kind of nonsense. And if you have a look back 30 years ago, when we had Big Daddy, right? Big Daddy was the British version of Hulk Hogan. I'll let you think about that. Then we had Giant Haystacks, right? Now Giant Haystacks was like Andre the Giant or Roddy Piper when they were heels. The gimmicks were no different. The wrestling was not different. WWF was more entertaining and was more valued for show business rather than wrestling, meaning they had to sell wrestling from just the look and the character-wise of the wrestlers. British Wrestling or World of Sport, they were producing technical wrestling, and no, there were moments where you get Big Daddy only like belly flopping someone or just bouncing someone off, and then they say, "Oh, it's stupid," or it's something like that. They've been critical about it. It's no different. Hulk Hogan was the same. All he had to do was body slam someone, show off his muscles, and do the flying leg drop, and that was it. That's all it is. So for me to tackle on those people who say it was too Americanized or anything like that, I'd say to you, it was no different. There was nothing that was totally different or taken from any part of wrestling shows, and that's my opinion. But the one thing as well, I have to defend Grado, right, for this one, is that one person was saying that these wrestlers were a joke or they were stupid. Come on, these are just wrestlers working a living. And one of them was criticising Grado, and one of them said, "Oh, the quicker Grado is off my TV, the better. He's not right for British wrestling." They only watched him once on television, and they did not see him in ICW. I saw him live. He was 10 times better than he was on World of Sport. But I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. Grado is a talented wrestler. Don't get me wrong. I've seen him on TNA. I've seen him live on ICW. I've seen him in all other wrestling promotions from across Britain to America, whatever. He's a talented wrestler, and the only reason why these people have seen the better Grado was off my television set was because they only see him once and they didn't appreciate it enough. So I say to you guys who have said about Grado, fuck you, right? Don't go criticizing a wrestler for only seeing him in one freaking match, or even two if you were watching World of Sports. And Jesus Christ, it was just so difficult to keep that in. But seriously, guys, as a wrestling fan, if you are a wrestling fan, you'd understand, you just appreciate it more. But for people who haven't watched wrestling for more than 30 years, because they were still used to watching World of Sport and not WWE or anything like that, then, they just haven't got a clue what has happened over the years. But all in all, for me, the World of Sport wrestling show, if I had to give it a mark out of 10, I'd give it a fair 7.5 out of 10. Only reason why was because there were a few moments where there was a few mistakes, or there was a few things I didn't like, or there was a few things that was not really good in that matter, especially when they did the backstage promos, and I thought that was very cheesy acting. But then again, what else is cheesy acting? No, actually, no, sorry. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. 7.5 is a bit harsh, but an 8 out of 10. It was a good show. I enjoyed it. And I hope they do much, much, much more World of Sport wrestling later on this year. I hope they do, because I think it will gather more audience views for ITV. And you never know. People might get fed up of watching WWE, which they are. They are getting fed up of watching the same thing. It's too repetitive now. They just keep giving you the same formula that Vince McMahon liked for the past 30, 40 years. It's always been the same. So for World of Sport, it gives you an opportunity, it gives itself an opportunity to just show the British audience what it's got now. So do it while you can. Come on. Right. I gave it an 8 out of 10. And that's my thoughts and opinions of World of Sport Wrestling. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast show, and thanks for being so patient and waiting for this episode to come. There will be much more to come along in the future. I can't wait to do more. I will try to get my friends Lewis Winter and Aaron Lamley to come back on. We've hopefully got some interviews coming up in the future, and I can't get enough of you guys giving me the feedback and trying to do this for you for the fun of it. It's just a journal kind of diary, you know. It's just a journal. I just do this for the fun of it, and I hope it's fun for you guys to listen to it. It really is. So all I can say is thank you so much for the support. Well, that's all I got time for here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This has been the Deansy Boys Show World of Sport Wrestling episode. I have been your host, Reese Deans, and I will see you very soon.